Welcome. Drink less, feel fresh podcast listeners. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can comment below, or if you're listening live on Spotify, great to have you here. Tommy Cartwright here, founder of Drink Less, Feel Fresh. This is the place and the space. We have deep conversations in a lighthearted way about reducing your alcohol intake, but even more than that, just learning to let go of attachment, live with more and more choice and more freedom. I'm accompanied by a very good friend of mine, an absolute expert and gun in the industry of letting go of attachment, Andrew Pearce. How are you, mate?
Very good, thank you, Tom. How are you?
I'm well. I'm very excited to do this podcast with you. Andrew and I are actually holidaying together at the moment. Andrew's flown over to New South Wales, mid-north coast here today it's beautiful and sunny.
Yeah.
Been a bit rainy the last few days. From Bali, where you've been living for
Past 4 years.
Mate, what's that like?
It's good times, man. It's every day my need for variety and adventure is met purely by being there. Nice warm weather. It's a very transient place, so there's a lot of newness and stuff going on, and there's a lot of people like myself wanting freedom, adventure, online work, online lifestyle. So it's a good match for me for where I'm at in my life right now.
And how's that go for you work-wise, working with clients?
Yeah, I just got to deal with either if they're in Perth, there's no time difference. Most of my clients are in Australia, so plenty on the East Coast. And so when there's daylight savings, it's a 3-hour time difference. When there's no daylight savings, it's a 2-hour time difference. So it's actually pretty easy to do. It gives me my mornings, which is good because I can get a surf in, and then I kick off when I'm done, and it's lunchtime for everyone else.
Just living the life.
Living the life.
Question, without going into too much, we care who you are deeply, but without going into all the story, I think a question that would help any of our listeners kind of get an understanding of who you are. What would you say is the most common problem at the end of the day you're helping your clients overcome or move through?
The most common problem would be one of, would just say of emotions. Emotional release would be the thing. Now that leads to burnout, stress, busyness, and like lack of direction and purpose. So
you just mentioned the most common patterns of anyone that seems to be drinking more than they'd like. At the end of the day, I'm tired, I'm burnt out, I'm stressed.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to release my emotions.
Yes.
And because of that, 3 to 6 beers at the end of the day just dampens it a little bit.
Yeah, it's like a warm hug.
It is like a warm hug. I'm glad you brought that, because that's the approach we have when it comes to drinking less and feeling fresh. Kind of taking the piss out of ourselves. If we can't take the piss out of ourselves, what's the point?
So what's drinking less, feeling fresh? A cold hug. Just like a wet blanket wrapped around you.
Oh, that's great. That's solid. How do we segue into what you're about to share now with that?
I reckon that's it.
That's it. Let's move into the wet blanket approach. That's the new title of your 3 stages to breaking through and your methodology around change. Listen to, hey?
I was going to say how to feel cold.
How to feel cold and uncomfortable. Drink Less, Feel Fresh family. Really excited and actually grateful and privileged to have you on the call, mate. You got some wicked concepts, some incredible ideas. Ever since we met 8 years ago, I think your work and what you do is it is so needed, especially within the category of someone wanting to change their relationship with alcohol.
Yeah,
it is the work you do is the opposite of the traditional approach. The traditional approach being you're a big drinker, never drink again, and hopefully that sorts you out. Your approach is much more of a, well, what's actually going on? What are you feeling? What is the quality of your experience like? That'd be pretty accurate to say. What is the quality of your experience on a daily basis like? And that's all that matters.
Yeah.
I often say to someone, and I say it's a joke, but it's not, I'd rather you be happy and drinking piss than not drinking any alcohol and depressed. Like, and there's a fine line to that. Take it with a grain of salt, but I actually mean it at the end of the day.
Yeah, I believe you do.
Whether you drink or not is not the issue. The quality of your life and the experience that you're having is all that you need to focus on. And I think you're an absolute master at, increasing the quality of that experience. And to the people that are listening to this, either on YouTube or Spotify, in kind of a conversation-based way where I might pick and prod, but could you share with the listeners and the viewers your 3-stage methodology?
Can do. So this is a 3-stage methodology of inner peace, emotional freedom, lifestyle freedom, and how to be calm, still, confident, connected to yourself, which all ends up in feeling good. And it's something that I've called the 3 relationships that have the first one is your relationship to fear and emotional pain. So it's how you relate to fear, basically, how you relate to fear and negative emotions.
So these, when you dive into them, are these, if someone's listening right now and they've never embarked on a personal development journey, they've never even chosen to dive into the journey of changing their relationship with alcohol, they're just maybe on the fence of like, be good to drink less, not really sure how to, or keep trying to do the 2 beer thing, then I have 6. Like, that's a common experience for our members. Are these just 3 steps that people can become aware of in the beginning?
Yeah, so there's an overview.
Yeah.
That will be like, okay, that makes sense, and I can see the journey. And then you can dive deep at each step. Each step has its skill to master, its ability to master. And there's a variety of different analogies, insights, processes to really that do begin to transform the way one relates to fear.
And would we have some potential listeners to this that are at different stages?
Yeah.
Different steps?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Most would be in phase 1.
Phase 1. Okay, talk us through phase 1. Give us the phase 1 goods.
So phase 1 is the way that you relate to fear and the way that you relate to your own internal world of thought, feeling, emotion, insecurity, doubt, darkness, shadow, and so on. And so if you have a high fear of fear, well, then you will be afraid to go within yourself, and you will distract, whether it's through alcohol or through overworking or through sex or social media, or maybe you play a lot of sports, or you're always moving houses and moving states, whatever it is.
Yep.
It's a struggle and an inability to be still with oneself. So you're always in that running that we've spoken about.
The minute you said, if you are afraid of fear, all that popped up immediately was me, 24 years old, high alcohol intake, high gambling intake, and like taking Valiums and muscle relaxants. Like, the minute you said it, I was like, that was what was going on. I couldn't even deal with being afraid or like shitty. It was like, oh God, I can't deal with this. This is all too much.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And so the analogy that I offer is, imagine being by yourself in a haunted house that has 100 doors that you need to explore to light the house up. And you're just in there by yourself with a torch. And each of those doors are different parts of yourself that you need to look at and that you need to heal. And once you go in the door and explore it, the light of that door then shines out into the house and begins to reduce the intensity of the darkness. That would be terrifying to be in that house within yourself, not knowing what's behind the doors, not knowing if the door's going to slam behind you and you'll be stuck in that room forever, all these different types of things. This is having a high fear of fear. Or imagine that you're in that house, there's 10 other people in there with you that you're all working together, you all have the same purpose, you're all supporting each other, you've got 10 flashlights, and you've explored 25 of the doors. And so those doors are left open with the light shining out into the house. All of a sudden, the exploration of the house, first off, being in the house is no longer anywhere near as scary. And so being in the house is being within yourself. And then B, the exploration of the house is no longer as scary because you've got 10 people with you, 10 flashlights. You've explored 25 rooms already that are lighting up the house. And so you know that even though the 26th door feels quite scary, you're just like, well, I've done 25, I can do 26. And so what this is really lending to is changing the way that you relate to the exploration of yourself. Because the more that you can be in your own experience with yourself, the less scary it is. A big reason why people are very resistant to exploring within themselves and have a high fear of fear is because of feeling completely alone in the fear. But if you've got one more person, like if I was to walk into a haunted house by myself, terrifying. If I had at a minimum you there, it'd be like, great, well, at least we're in this together.
Yeah, I think everybody would relate with that in some way.
Exactly. So many people aren't even in it together with themselves in their own body and in their own experience. And so that's why fear is scary. You see kids, when kids are afraid, they just want to run to their parents immediately because they're in the fear. It's just like, what is this? And so within ourselves, whether you're 50 years old, it's just like, what is this? What is this depth of darkness, of doubt, of fear, of insecurity within me that feels so shaky and that I could feel so lost within? You know, it's like walking into a dark cave, losing your sense of direction. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. That would be terrifying because you'd be like, I can't see anything. You know, I don't know any way out.
And so many people, I think, are unaware. I love this. I've never heard this metaphor, analogy that you're using. It just seems so relevant. How many people are feeling this on a day-to-day basis and not aware of it? How many people are getting home from a really busy day at work and this is potentially the feeling that they're having and they're not aware? And then they're wondering, why did I have that bottle of wine again? Why did I have that bottle of wine again?
Yes. I'm just making this up. This number is just my opinion, but I would imagine like 95% of the population, if not more, because we're just not taught this.
Yeah. So
I would truly imagine 95, if not like with the way that with the numbers, like 98% of the population, something like that, would be in phase one of just running, thinking that they want things, but really they just don't want to be here. And if they didn't have a goal or something to focus on and slow down, that's going to catch up. And it's just like, fuck that. We'll just keep moving forward.
Busy, on the go. And if I'm not on the go, I'm beating myself up for the stuff that I did on the go yesterday.
Yeah.
Just such a common pattern. The minute you're talking about phase one, it makes a lot of sense that, that's why I always appreciate having mentors in my corner. Just because the haunted house, so to speak, is a little bit easier to deal with.
Yes.
When it comes time to open a door.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. Love that.
Yeah.
Phase two.
Yeah. So phase two, then what happens is the work that I take people through is that, which is this, as
before you share, I'm sorry to cut in straight away, but before you share, does phase two give insight to phase one? Or if there's some people in phase one at the moment, do you have a suggestion for them? Or does that come later?
Yeah. Both.
Great, cool. You go on.
So the first thing I want you to think about with the relationships is think about a sunset and how when you're watching a sunset, all the colors blend together so perfectly. And that even though yellow is the most yellow here and orange is the most orange over here, there's still specks of yellow that are over in the orange and there's specks of orange that are over in the yellow, for example. So the relationships work in that way. They blend in that way. That as you're leaving the orange, for example, you hit a little speck of yellow. You're still heavily in the orange, so you're still heavily in phase one, but you're beginning to access and open up specks of phase two. So there's a blend through. So the work that you do in phase one is impacting phase two and phase three. Yeah,
as opposed to like, I'm now done phase one and let me go and look at what phase two is. I have no idea what it is.
Yes.
It's a kind of an appreciation or a starting to understand what phase. Could I say, please don't agree if it's not correct, but from just even understanding and becoming aware of phase two, is that already shedding light into phase one and those kind of colors merging as you speak? That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. So, look, an insight in phase one is that what's coming up is coming up to leave. When fear or doubt or insecurity comes up from the unconscious to the conscious in our bodies, it feels like it's coming up to get us, to sabotage us, to beat us, to drag us down. And because it feels that way, we react to how we feel and we fight against it. But what's coming up is coming up to leave. That insight alone, and I have a number of other insights and analogies, that insight alone begins to help you change the way that you relate to fear. Fear is the primary emotion, insecurity, doubt, etc., all fall under the primary emotion of fear. And so that insight alone your initial way of relating was to react out of fear, and then fight and try and push back down. That insight changes the way that you can relate to fear in a moment by understanding, oh, what's coming up is coming up to leave. I'm not going to fight. I'm going to step back and I'm going to trust instead. And so the way that you're relating to fear begins to change. You have the ability to be more still with yourself. You're mastering the skill of emotional release, and you're allowing stuff to pass on through. Then what you will find is, as you improve your skills and your abilities at phase one, and you're not running so much, naturally the question of like, well, what's next comes about. If you're no longer always trying to solve the emotional problem of feeling trapped or of just doing things in your life from a place of running, it then begs the question, which this question has a huge impact on phase one as well, of, okay, well, what do I want to do? Who do I want to be? Because this is a scary question that if you leave unaddressed, you'll actually have an addiction to staying in phase one, because it's more comfortable to run and constantly trying to solve problems of being stuck or feeling trapped than it is to really be yourself in the world. I think it's the most vulnerable thing that we can do is live a life by design, because it's a direct expression of ourselves and who we're being. And so phase two is changing the way that you relate to desire, self-value, and self-expression. And so a reason why most people are stuck in phase one does contribute to the fears that I help people work through in phase two, which is any shame, guilt, embarrassment that they have around the things that they want and the things that they desire. Then having any embarrassment, criticism, self-judgment around who they are and the things that they want to express in the world and who they want to be. And then any judgment on owning their own value, owning how good they are, charging what they want to charge, being who they want to be. And so you open up a whole new can of worms as you enter phase two, because it's a way of saying, this is who I am. I really do believe that living a life by design is the most vulnerable thing that you can do, because it is just saying, it's expressing yourself to the world and who you truly are, not the job that you work because someone's got to pay the bills and someone's got to pay the mortgage and, well, I don't have any other job, any other option because I'm stuck. It's not like there's a safety to that, but this is an expression of saying, this is who I am. These are the things that I value. This is what I'm about. This is how I want to live.
So Andrew, when you say living, because you said it twice, living a life by design, unless I'm mistaken, you're referring to taking a moment to stop and actually bring some clarity to what you want. So stop the hamster wheel and actually potentially toy with the idea of what you truly desire.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so the fears, that's going to bring up a different set of fears, doubts, insecurities. Is this the right thing to want? Is this the wrong thing to want? Is it okay to want this? Like, is it okay for me to want X amount of money, X amount of time, or is that a bad thing? And it just taps into an insecurity of self, an unsureness of self, that we find safety in avoiding by just being on the hamster wheel, and whinging and bitching and kind of, complaining and blaming and externalizing. It's just like, well, there's plenty of stuff that you can do in phase one. And then to answer your question of, does phase two give light to it? It does, because what so many people are avoiding in phase one, which they don't realize because they're constantly focusing on fixing, is actually being themselves in the world. And that's scary.
Yeah. You bring it up as you talk through the phases, you're actually bringing up specific milestones and markers that I would have experienced overcoming addiction. And when you say your relationship to your relationship to what you want, I remember having a therapy session, some would call it, with a specialist, and had worked through a lot of the fears, a lot of the stuckness. And then they asked me, I think it was like fifth session, and like, let's spend some time talking about what do you want at the end of the day? Like, what do you want? And I remember about 40 minutes in the session, I just said, I just want to be happy. And they said, okay. And is there anything stopping you from experiencing that? And I remember just really vulnerably and honestly saying, I don't deserve it. Like, just true in my vulnerability. I was like, there's something in my psyche and in my body that's saying, Tom Cartwright, you're not meant to have that.
Yeah.
And looking back, thinking, that is bizarre to even want happiness, the thing that even socially seems the most appropriate for everyone, and something in the body be like, nah. But I never would have known that, right?
Yes.
Like, never, yeah. So it's crazy when you talk about step two. It's like, I had done enough work in step one personally, even now got into step or phase two, so to speak.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. How many people throwing up numbers or just insights, like how many people have you found and not even aware, and then have a realization to become aware or realize that they aren't even giving themselves permission really, that it's okay to want what they want, to desire what they desire?
So many.
So
many.
It's just, it seems sad and baffling at the same time that we're even in a position to experience that, to experience a doubting of what we desire, what our heart desires.
Yeah, and just an insecurity around us. Like I felt a sense of like wrongness. Is this the right thing to want?
Yes. I have a good friend of mine, thoughts on this. I have a really good friend of mine going through the incredible 12-step AA system, and they're going through some relationship troubles. And I said, what do you truly desire right now? Like, what do you really want? And they said, I just really desire just a really, two-way, beautiful, connected, I don't know, relationship. I just desire that. Like, that'd be cool. And I said, that's fantastic. You should create that. You could create that. And their response was, well, I can't yet. I said, why is that? Well, I've got some steps to do, and I've got some work to do, and I need to sort my stuff out, because it's not fair of me to take my shit into a relationship. Which I can understand, two sides of the party. However, I'm curious in sabotaging and neglecting what you truly desire is the thing that keeps you stuck. Like, I need to fix me. It's an old conundrum that people get caught in, right? Like, fix yourself before you take it into a relationship. I like playing with the idea of, but what are your thoughts on this? Of like, well, create the life you want, and you'll naturally let go of and dissolve problem.
Yeah, I agree. I think the willingness to move forward and explore and express despite the presence of fear is the greatest tool for growth, rather than, let me sit here and fix a bunch of shit first and then move forward.
Yeah, I personally, and I think a lot of people resonate with this, and I bring a lot of stories into this, as you can tell, for our listeners. I didn't sit there and go, let me figure out to become non-addicted anymore. I looked at the person I was with, and I was like, do I want her more than I want my insecurity around addiction? The answer was yes. So I basically let go of all that shit to have the relationship that I always desired most.
Yeah.
And I just think that's a common experience for people, or a really common experience for people, is stuck in the, I'm not fixed yet. Like, I'm a wounded animal and there's something wrong with me that needs to be fixed before I can have the things that I want.
Yeah. Good shit.
Yeah, just heaps of compassion for people, though. It's tough to be in it. Thoughts or insights into what if someone's feeling that they're in the desire stage, if someone feels like they're toying around, they're having these visions and these thoughts of maybe moving jobs, or getting in a relationship, or getting out of a relationship, or practicing spiritual work, or going to a meditation retreat, like, any thoughts for someone who's on that fence of, they're just not taking the action yet?
Yeah. So an insight to begin to change the way that you relate to desire is that desire is your compass for where to go to next.
Wait, say that again.
Desire is your compass for where to go to next. Also understand that desires aren't goals. So I had a client that had a desire to be irresponsible and to just not give a fuck and not care. And as they fulfilled that desire, they then made 38K in 38 days. I've had a client whose desire has just been to frolic. That's not a goal. It's a desire. It's a feeling in your body. What do you feel that you want? And the exploration of that desire will then crystallize into specifics and steps, and it can become a goal. And also, I love this. This analogy's only popped into my mind recently. I really like it. Is that when you're in a clothing store and you go to the changing rooms, there is no commitment to buying anything that you try on. And if you walk there and the store clerk was just like, if you try them on, you've got to pay for them, then you'd be like, oh shit, fuck, again, maybe I'm not going to try these on.
Yeah.
And you would stand in the store with 5 pairs of shorts and 7 t-shirts and 2 hats, and you'll be analyzing, what's going to look best. And you'd put these combinations together. And then as you drop that combination, you put up other combinations, and you'd be like, but I forgot how this combination looked. And this is what happens when we analyze our internal worlds. We're just like, all right, let's look at this side. Okay, that side's like that. All right, now I need to analyze this side. But then, I've forgot what that side looked like. Let's flip it back really quick. Okay, and you're just stuck in analysis paralysis. But there's no commitment to buying any of the clothes that you try on. So to provide a safe space, both to explore your pain from phase 1 and then also your desire and your expression in phase 2, is that you can explore your desires in a safe space, knowing that you don't need to commit to any of them, but you can explore the expression of them and where it takes you in your body. Because so many people are like, but if I moved over to Bali, then I'd have to do this and I'd have to do that, and that would mean this and this would mean that. If I moved state, if I quit my job, if I started dating, if I started exploring this area of my sexuality, or if I did this, all of these bad things are going to happen. And this is the shadow that comes up and goes, oh, you don't want to do that, because you're going to have to commit to all these other things and change all these things about your life. No, you can explore your desires and try them on just as you try on clothes without having to commit to making a buying decision. So you can explore your desires without having to commit to following through on them.
The fear of having to commit and follow through dramatically reduces the chance of people trying it on in the first place, right?
Massively.
Like, I don't want to commit to a new job role, so I won't toy with the idea of maybe finding my dream job.
Yeah.
I don't want to commit to, I see it a lot in relationships. Like, I'm not committed to settling down with someone, so I don't want to start dating.
Yeah.
Like, this incredible.
Yeah.
Insight for anyone that's at phase 2, other than the ones that you've mentioned, like anything specific? Or because I'm hearing and I could be wrong, and I hate to sound like I'm dumbing it down, but like, just fucking try shit on.
Yeah.
Like, have a crack at something.
Yeah.
Go and see a tarot card reader. Speak to a psychologist. Go to your GP. Like, just try anything.
Yeah. The last thing I'll share is that if you trust your action and if you trust your exploration, and you go 3 steps in the wrong direction, and it then leads you to the right direction, well, it really wasn't the wrong direction. And trusting the wrong direction is going to lead you to the right direction. But trying to figure out the right direction without any movement is never going to work. And so, like I said, so for example, I started a psychology degree, and I could be like, I wasted 6 months of my life and spent 10 grand on a degree that I'm never going to use. I've never, ever, ever said that or had that thought or anything, because 6 months in that led me to coaching. Bam, that's exactly it. But I started being like, I have an interest in this, and let's see where it goes. I trust that it's going to take me where I want to be. And that's exactly what happened. But if I was just like, still trying to figure out the right degree for me.
I've already started it, I better finish it.
Yeah, or exactly. I've got to already started, better finish it. Then I wouldn't be here. Or I'd just be, I would have wasted a couple of years instead of wasting, well, not wasting, but, using 6 months. So trust your action, trust your exploration, and it will take you to where to what's right for you.
I love that. Trust your exploration as opposed to get it right.
Yeah.
There's a little interview I saw a year or so ago with Will Smith, and the interview says pretty basically, Mr. Smith, what's created all of your success for you in the movie, in the Hollywood industry? And Will looks down the camera and he goes, making good decisions, making the right decisions. And the interviewer rebutted with, how do you make the right decisions? And he goes, make a heap of wrong decisions.
Yeah.
And I just thought that is incredible. And it backs up like what you're suggesting. Like, you just make decisions over and over. You commit to, as you say, your exploration, and just the fruits come from that.
Yeah, totally.
Phase 3.
Phase 3. So phase 3 is it's phases 1 and 2 are very much internal, emotional, energetic. They are creating the foundations for you to then have the physical. And so phase 3 is about having your, phase 1 is your willingness to explore your darkness, let's say. Phase 2 is your willingness to explore and express your desires. And then phase 3 is willing to have your life and to have that reality. And it's changing the way that you relate to creation, intuition, whether you follow it or not, and time. So this is really about lifestyle. Do you have the lifestyle that you want? Or are you, for example, someone who's, doing the work that they want to do, but it takes up 60 hours of your week? So this would say that you've got elements of 1 and 2 that are pretty good. And you look, so you can also have different percentages of how clean you are at each phase that flows into the other. But so phase 3 is when you have that lifestyle, you have the time on your hands, and there's a freedom and a confidence and an inner peace that comes from your confidence in yourself and your ability to consciously create, to set an intention, to set a goal, and to make it happen. You've got insight and understanding of the nature of consciousness and creation and how it works. You know how to uncover your blocks, and install the new ways of thinking and the new ways of being in the world that are going to result in creating what you want. And so phase 1, there's an inner peace and a calm and a freedom that comes from no longer running and being afraid of what's in your body. Phase 2, there's an inner peace and a calm and a freedom that comes from being comfortable with change and expressing your desires and being who you are in the world. And phase 3, there's an inner peace and a calm and a freedom that comes from being confident in your ability to bring resources into your life. So you're not in this space of time or resource scarcity. And with all 3 of them together, you find that you're having a good time. And you're present. Like the time we've been spending together and just in my life recently, I feel that I'm just directly having the experience that I'm having. I feel that I'm very effortlessly present in the moment, and there's not any there's not a be, all right, I'm really being present with Tom here, or I'm making sure that I soak it up, or that I'm really being grateful for the moment whilst it's here. And it's not even necessarily overly profound, although at times that does dip in and out. It's just like, I'm just here. I'm not in the past of shit that's gone on. I'm not in the future of potential things. It's just like,
what do they say? Happiness is the absence of searching for it.
Yeah.
It's like we often think we're happy, but if we're thinking, like as you said, like, I'm so grateful. Hang on. Thank you that the sun's out. Like, you're trying to make the moment, having to replicate and make sure it is a happy moment. And I'm kind of hearing from you, which is an interesting theme you see from specialists that are experiencing deep states of presence. It's like, it's kind of happiness, but it's kind of just chill, if anything, just in the moment.
Yes.
It's not an exaggeration of an emotional experience. It's just.
Yes. And there's moments where it's like, oh my God, this is fucking awesome, and the excitement comes through, and there's inspiration, and there's more profound experiences of gratitude and presence. But otherwise, it's just like the baseline has just risen. Because I'm not worrying about dropping the ball. I've gone deep within myself a number of times, so I'm not afraid of that kind of stuff happening. So I can be here, and then I'm not afraid of like, oh, who am I actually, or what are people going to think of this part of me? What are people going to think about that part of me? What if everything changes? Because I've gone through plenty of change, so I'm not worrying about that stuff, and I'm instead here. And I've had resources dip before, and I've always bounced back and created results in my life. And I know that I can create results, and I'm getting better at it day in, day out. So I'm not worrying about the future or potential loss, and instead I'm here. And it is possible for everyone else working through a bunch of different methodologies, not just the 3 relationships. This is just the way that my work and insights and teachings have evolved. But you can achieve this type of stuff doing anyone else's, other people's methodologies. I share that in this way for you to know that it's not the methodology or the tool that's going to do it for you. It's you that's going to do it for you.
Which is very refreshing to hear with a bunch of methodologies and systems out there that are saying, especially when it comes to alcohol. Alcohol is like this weird industry where it's like, there's one way to do it.
Yeah.
And that way is that you need to release your childhood trauma, and people that have addictions or are more influenced having addictions have had increased childhood traumatic experiences, which, yes, does make sense. But that's a sliding scale, and everybody has experienced childhood traumatic experience. It's just a sliding scale from the severity on a social, situation. I think it leaves a lot of people scratching their heads. We attract a lot of people, AP, I think you'll find interesting, that have an issue or problem with their relationship with alcohol, whether it's 2 drinks a week or 2 bottles a night. The content, the amount isn't relevant for us at DLFF, but they often say to us, they're scratching their head and they're like, well, I don't know why I'm addicted to this thing. I'm a smart, successful, switched on person. And we start having a conversation. They're going, and I don't have traumatic experiences. I don't understand why I didn't experience this and this. And there's all these assumptions that they're this way because they had to have that. And that's what we see out there is a lot of people like, well, hang on a second, what's going on? Mm-hmm. So if you to bring this approach of like, look, this is just a methodology that can go under pretty much anything. I think that's really nice to hear. It's really refreshing to hear, like, you're the not you, the person that's listening is the expert. You are the source, the creator of your own change.
Yeah.
To hear your relationship with these 3 phases of yourself is refreshing, as opposed to your relationship with this model and program is going to save you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I would never want to pitch that. And then you go deeper into all the relationships as well. You'll go through all 3. You kind of like run over the top, and you go deeper, and it's just, it's pretty cool. It's effective. It works, and it's not something that I've gone ahead and thought up of. I need to create a methodology. It's just evolved and unfolded in front of myself, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's this, and this is this, and this is this, and I've just brought a name to it. It's cool, man. It makes a lot of sense to me. There's a lot of different insights and processes at each level, and it's good shit.
Yeah, and I love it. Can I share a couple of insights just from how I've perceived the stuff that you've taught?
Mm-hmm.
So to anybody that's new to changing your relationship with alcohol, you've been looking for the right kind of approach or something that kind of gels and vibes with you. From what I'm taking from this, there might be a nice really landing point for you is if you're new to the journey, bring a sense of willingness and courage to remember the metaphor or analogy that you gave about the haunted house, to go on the journey with fucking someone. Like just in the material, physical world, going on the journey with someone. Like, please don't. I say to people like, an old Einstein quote or whoever it was, if you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, it'll grow up thinking it's an idiot.
Yeah.
If you judge your ability to deal with a haunted house on your own, you'll grow up thinking you're not courageous.
Yeah.
And you're weak.
Yes.
People make it so hard for themselves. So phase 1, learn to bring a sense of courage and maybe even faith, and just experience that haunted house with someone, whether it's a group, whether it's reaching out to AP, whether it's hitting me up with a message, whoever it is, just find freaking someone.
Yeah.
like you and I would suggest are where we are today in business due to our friendships and our ability to explore phase 1, phase 2, and share phase 3 together.
Yes.
Like Andrew and I are very good friends these days, even though we met through like being kind of work colleagues more so. We have that ability to explore those, don't we?
Yeah.
All the phases that keep coming back. Phase 1, oh, this is going on. A phase 2, oh, am I allowed to have this? This is exciting.
Yeah.
And then the experience of it, which we've had the past couple of days, right? Being in the moment and experiencing this life and this quality of living because we've gone through those phase 1 and 2 so much.
Yes, exactly right.
And then phase 2 for someone who's kind of on the fence of like, yeah, look, I'm kind of okay doing that. And I've done some work with some people and I'm understanding my triggers and my shadows and what I'm running away from, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. Just invite yourself to the invitation to give yourself permission to want what you want. And if you're feeling, I would suggest, afraid or scared of that, you probably haven't found the right people close enough to you. And it can just be one person that receives that well, that hears you suggest and share what you desire, time off, freedom, you said earlier, like just the experience of not giving a fuck for a day, taking a day off work and going, I don't have to be stressed today, or I don't have to manifest sickness and illness to take a day off work, which many of us have done.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, just know you can create the life that you want. And what I love about what Andrew said, and why I was so excited to get you on here, he kind of wrapped it up with phase 3 of like, which is the DLFF philosophy, which is at the end of the day, the only antidote to any and all attachment / addiction is living your absolute dream. Like at the end of the day, drop addiction aside and chemical imbalances and trauma work and doing this work and that work. It's if you're not living the life that you ultimately want to live, you're going to be running addiction and attachment patterns. Because everybody needs a reason and excuse on why they aren't where they want to be. And that's, there's my 2 cents from, all the absolute gold that you shared.
Love it, mate. I think it's a pretty good wrap up and summary there. Not too much to add from my end.
Mate, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Did you know you're our first guest?
Great. As it should be.
Yeah, it's a big call, and you'll be our last.
Yeah.
Let's make sure that when we're 80, we're sitting here doing a podcast together.
Choosing first and last.
Yeah, first and last. Thanks, Drinkless, Feel Fresh family and followers. If you're watching this on YouTube and you want to show up to live to any of these, or you're listening to this on Spotify right now, just head to your Safari browser and type in www.drinklessfeelfresh and you'll see a registration page. You can show up live to these Monday calls every Monday morning, 8 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time. There is a Q&A and a chat panel if you want to ask questions and have them answered by myself or another specialist on the spot, which is pretty cool. Otherwise, here's to drinking less and feeling fresh. Here's to living with choice and freedom. Bye for now. Thanks, AP.